I apologize to Andrew B. Einhorn. We had him earlier set for the start of the show, but this big flu thing getting bigger and bigger in the news and the talk of forced inoculations. You heard people calling in with their nurse wife being told she has to take it or she's fired. That has kind of taken over the news here. I'll be covering that exclusively next hour and continuing with your phone calls. But right now, Andrew B. Einhorn, an expert in the field of statistics and strategic communications, environmental management, public health. And I saw him in a piece in Russia Today, headline, Road Police Blood Test are an act of rape. Texas passed a law where they don't even need warrants to take your blood. The feds paid the state to do this. And I wanted to get his take on this. I mean, imagine in World War II, if the Nazis would have had roadside checkpoints taking people's blood under the guise of DWI with no warrant. This is getting insane. Mr. Einhorn, thanks for coming on with us.
Thanks for having me, Alex. I appreciate the time.
You bet. In your research of this, what was it like to discover this was going on?
It was pretty mind-blowing. I thought we were past this sort of era of big government, if you will, at least of invasive practices of big government. I should amend that. And as I mentioned in my editorial on MyGov, it seems like this is a clear violation of a number of our amendments. The Fourth Amendment.
But it's for the good. We've got to stop drunk drivers, even though Prozac drivers are twice as dangerous and texting drivers are twice as dangerous. But again, we've got to get rid of the Fourth Amendment and have $15 million fines for garage sales that sell a recalled toy or desk. And it's just all about getting the average. But again, tell us what's happening around the country from your research, how the feds are financing this, what's going on.
So it's a pilot program that started about 3 weeks ago, run by the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration. What they're doing is they're training police officers in phlebotomy and being able to take blood draws and doing it at the station and in mobile blood units. They can call to the scene of a suspected DUI.
Total federalization. Right there is a total violation of the 10th Amendment.
It's, I think a lot of lawyers would definitely argue that it goes against any self-incrimination law and a deprivation of property without due process of law, property being your blood in this particular instance.
Did you know that if you read the real documents, the older ones, this is a plan for a national DNA registry just to train you to have the idea of police out taking blood?
I did not. I was not aware of that. But,
anyways, go ahead. So the feds are training the locals to take blood. Go ahead.
So the two programs that are happening are taking place in Idaho and Texas. And although a similar program has been going on for about 14 years in Arizona, and believe it or not, 2 weeks ago, the Arizona State Supreme Court ruled this unconstitutional, yet the Fed is going ahead with their pilot program in other states where the state constitution, basically, according to the law...
That's right. I first remember seeing this on the air when I first got on air 13 years ago in Tucson, the Daily Star, and my listeners couldn't believe that police were taking blood at checkpoints. Go ahead.
No, I mean, it's absolutely crazy. I mean, if you think about the implications of this just merely from a health perspective, it can make your kind of hair on your back stand up in terms of, using unsafe needles, potentially forcibly taking blood, meaning that you have a potential suspect who's thrashing around in their seat, and the officer also being potentially exposed to any bloodborne pathogen, as well as the suspect who, and I use that term suspect to mean someone who either may or may not have had any alcohol at that point. This is really up to the officer's whim to determine what probable cause really means, because they do not need a court order to draw your blood. So it really leaves a lot of power in the hands of a few, and anytime we see that, we see potential for abuse.
Absolutely. Again, completely unconstitutional. Here in Texas, in fact, let's just play that clip real fast. Here is a clip of local news saying, yeah, you don't need a warrant anymore. You don't need a warrant anymore to take blood. But it's only if the kid's in the car. It's only if you've had a DWI before. It's only, but a year ago it was, we're going to have fake rubber stamp warrants. Now it's no warrants. A year from now it'll be, it's just DNA we're taking, just like they do in England. Here it is.
Our top story here on the Night Beat. A little-known law which goes into effect in less than 2 weeks will allow a lot more blood draws across Texas. The Night Beat's Shelton Green is live on North Mopac with details. Shelton?
Tyler, starting September the 1st, police across Texas won't need a search warrant to draw blood from people involved in one of 3 situations after a crash. Number 1, if you injure someone in that crash, or number 2, if you have prior DWIs, or number 3, if you have a child in your car at the time of the crash. So in other words, blood can be drawn even if you're not suspected of driving drunk.
All right, that's enough. No more warrants in America, and it's just a positive piece for it. And the feds are financing this, a total violation of state law. Go ahead, Mr. Einhorn.
I absolutely agree. On this front, I think it's, as I mentioned before, it's a clear disconnect between what people are really wanting and hoping to do, and that's getting drunk drivers off the road, and the reality of the situation and how a program would be executed and all the potential for problems. Outside, of course, of simply the legal argument that it's illegal. And I can't imagine that this would go on for too long. I think if we all do our jobs as journalists, it shouldn't. But, it's sort of one of those unbelievable scratch-your-head type cases where you're thinking. And, if you go and there's a really long account on Oh My Gov that they responded to, the editorial from someone who responds traumatized in Texas. And they give the account where, on September 4th, they went through this whole process. And it was a woman talking about how she had maybe one glass of wine that night,